First of all, I need to explain how I went from Brazil to the Isle of Skye, which is such an amazing place. While I was in my last year of university as an engineering student in Brazil, I got a scholarship to go to University of Liverpool for 1 year through a Brazilian government program called Science Without Borders. As it is tradition among interchange students, we use some of free time from the university to get to know other places around Europe. Being one of these places, an isle in the north of Scotland, named Isle of Skye, which is around 8 hours by car from Liverpool. Me, two Brazilian roommates, and two Chinese friends rented a car, booked the hotels, and packed the bags. We were ready to hit the road. Along the road, everything was going fine, and before we arrived at the Isle of Skye, we went to many different cities in Scotland, like Glasgow, the capital Edinburgh, and Inverness. But for now, I'm not going to talk about none of these places. Maybe another time. As soon as we arrived at the Isle of Skye, as we were doing our check-in, we already faced some problems. Because of an error in our scheduling, our reservations were booked to a different date. It could have been a mistake that would change all our plans, but fortunately ended up not being a big deal because there were still some rooms available. The stress of that situation was a sign that the future was holding some special to us in that isle. We went straight to our rooms just to quickly leave our bags and got back to the car, as there were breathtaking mountains, castles, and beaches waiting for us. As you already know, Scotland is famous for its whiskies. As we went by a distillery nearby, we decided to buy a bottle of whiskey Talisker 10 years old and go direct to the beach. The beaches are not the typical tropical beaches of Brazil, with a hot and shining sun and their white sand. They have a lot of mountains around, and the sky is a little bit cloudy, with the weather a little bit cold. But even though different, they have their own kind of beauty. We walked around the place and had a little chat. At the final phase of our exploration, we decided to open the whiskey bottle. I'm not much of a drinker, so I only drank a sip or two. One of our Asian friends also didn't use to drink, but he dared to go much further and drank a lot. He drank so much that we needed help him to walk to the car. Then we head back to the hotel. At the road, we can see half of the sun at the horizon, and the night slowly begins, and the weather is getting a little colder. For a while, our drunk friend was just quiet and didn't bother anyone until he started to get dizzy and not feeling well. We had to stop the car. Out of the car, he walked around a bit without any direction, making some strange sounds and with the only focus of getting rid of the alcohol in his system, but without any success. Then suddenly he decides to lay on the ground. As we wait and try to give him any assistance necessary, an ambulance goes by and a paramedic questions us if we need any help. We decline, but I need to confess that I wasn't sure how would that situation unfold. Our friend didn't totally recover, but he was feeling good enough that we could go back to the car without him throwing up all over the place. We kept our journey to the hotel, but now it's already night, and the cold starts to bother us. The only sound we hear is the rain. Finally, we arrived at the hotel. It was around 11 p.m., and apparently everybody was already sleeping. Our drunk friend, now, for some unexplainable reason, starts to scream with all his forces through the aisles of the hotel, until a brief moment when he stops only to throw up and then quickly come back to screaming. We hurry up to take him to the room, but doesn't matter what we try, the door just won't open. The keys are not working. All of a sudden, women's voices come from inside the room, warning us that the room has already been taken and that we should just leave. As our friend keeps screaming, we try to explain that we left our bags in the room with all our things. The women reply that there is nothing ours in there. So that's it. We are far from home, tired of a full day of traveling and walking, in a foreign isle, in a rainy and cold night, and a drunk friend that screams and throws up. And we have been forbidden to enter our rooms, where all our things are. An old lady with a cup of tea in her hand and in sleeping clothes shows up at the end of the corridor. She's there just staring at us, trying to understand that mess. The idea comes to our minds. Let's explain to her the situation and let her talk to the girls in the room. An old lady is much less suspicious than a bunch of strange drunk guys in the middle of the night. By the time we are done with the details, she tells us that there is a little celebration going on the other building and that the receptionist might be there. Great. Now we leave the women talking and run to find someone from the hotel that can explain why there are other people in our room. After a brief verification with the receptionist, who was drinking at the celebration, we find out that due to our early error in scheduling in the check-in, our rooms were going to be only temporarily one, but soon would be changed to another place, where all our things had already been taken to. Finally, mystery solved. We can now go to our real places and rest.